Hello and welcome to Fridays with Fintelekt. My name is Shirish Pathak. I head Fintelekt, and my guest today is Jermy Prenio, Senior Advisor, Financial Stability Institute at the Bank for International Settlements, which he joined in 2016. Jeremy is involved in managing the FSI's outreach program for banking supervision. He contributes to the FSI's published work, mainly through FSI Insights on policy implementation, and develops other policy-related material for FSI Connect. Before this, he was the Deputy Director for Regulatory Affairs at the Institute of International Finance in Washington, D.C., where he led the formulation of the global banking industry's views on international regulatory issues. Jeremy also worked as a regulator in the Philippines, where he headed the task force on Basel II implementation. Jeremy has been the co-author of a report on Suptech applications for anti-money laundering that was published last year as part of FSI's Insights on Policy Implementation. And with FinTech, RegTech, and Suptech been spoken about extensively these days, I thought it would be a good idea to get a quick overview of this report and related areas from Jeremy. So Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Fridays with Fintelekt.
Now, thank you very much, Shirish. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased and honored to be here joining you for your Fridays with Fintelekt, and I hope I can contribute something to your viewers.
Thanks, Jeremy. So, Jeremy, to start with, can you give our viewers a quick overview of Suptech as a discipline, its evolution, and maybe current status of adoption globally? Also, if you could run through the rationale behind creating the report that I mentioned earlier on the use of Suptech and AML-CFT.
Yeah, sure. So Suptech is basically short for supervisory technology, and it can be defined very broadly to include the use of any technology by financial authorities to support their oversight role on financial institutions. But in our Suptech papers, we try to narrow it down to the use of innovative technology. And by innovative technology, we refer to the application of big data or artificial intelligence to tools used by financial authorities. Now, we started monitoring Suptech developments in 2017 and then published our first paper on the topic in 2018. And since then, Suptech initiatives have gained momentum in a number of authorities around the world. In fact, there is a forthcoming report from the Financial Stability Board on Suptech initiatives in its member authorities. And I can tell you that a number of these authorities didn't even know what Suptech was in 2017, but now they are quite actively exploring different Suptech tools. Now, in our first paper, we tried to map oversight areas where Suptech can be found. And there are two such areas. So you have data collection and data analytics. And in the area of data analytics, there are sub-areas under it as well, where Suptech tools can be found. And these are market surveillance, misconduct analysis, microprudential, and macroprudential supervision. And what we found in our first paper is that, and even in our succeeding papers, is that the use of Suptech tools for misconduct analysis, particularly in detecting potential AML-CFT violations, seems more advanced compared to other areas. So that's why in our second Suptech paper, we decided to focus on Suptech AML applications.
Right. So, Jeremy, what would you say are some of the data-related challenges that are faced by AML-CFT authorities?
Yeah, so AML-CFT authorities, whether they are supervisors or financial intelligence units or FIUs, they have to conduct data analysis in order to identify, assess, and understand the money laundering and terrorist financing risk in their jurisdictions. In doing so, AML-CFT authorities look at different types of information, from transactional information and non-transactional information that gets reported to them, to information from other authorities and other public government bodies, to even information from non-traditional sources such as news articles, social media, and the like. Now, the combination of all these information, all these types of information from very disparate sources results in huge amount of data. And of course, there are challenges that come with dealing with huge amount of data in terms of data collection, data management, and data analytics. Now, you can always automate your processes, right? And that can address the challenges associated with data collection and data management. But in terms of data analytics, authorities still need tools in order to analyze all these different types of information that comes in many forms, because some of them may be structured information, while some may be unstructured information. And authorities need to make a coherent story out of all these different information. And this is where Suptech analytics tools, we think, can be helpful. And big data and AI are well suited to do these types of analyses. And this to us may be the reason as well why Suptech applications for AML CFD seem more advanced compared to other areas, as I mentioned earlier.
Right. So, Jeremy, what are some of these tools that have been developed? I mean, you've been interacting or at least observing the AML CFD supervisors and FIUs around the world. Could you speak a bit about these tools?
Yeah, so AML CFD supervisors and FIUs use quite similar Suptech data analytics tools to achieve their different objectives. These tools, for example, include network analysis, machine learning, natural language processing, text mining, among others. And in general, I think both types of authorities use these tools to transform, as I mentioned earlier, the significant amount of structured and unstructured data into useful information that can contribute to their respective work. Now, the tools used by AML CFD supervisors in particular seek to enhance their offsite capabilities, which in turn can help them in their risk-based prioritization of on-site inspections. So AML CFD supervisors basically use Suptech tools in order to improve risk scoring of institutions, in order to identify networks to which institutions are exposed to, and also to evaluate institutions' compliance with AML CFD requirements. Now, on the other hand, the tools used by FIUs help them mainly in two ways. First, these tools help in the prioritization of their work, similar to what the supervisors are doing. And second, these tools also reduce the reaction time of FIUs to a rapidly changing environment. So in particular, FIUs use Suptech tools in order to detect networks of entities involved in suspicious activities, to assess the likelihood of money laundering activity, and also to identify patterns and trends in criminal activity.
Right. And, is there any particular process that they've used to develop these tools? And what would you say are some of the implementation challenges or issues they had? And, how do you see they've overcome some of that?
Yeah, so AML CFT authorities develop these advanced data analytics tools in different ways. Some, for example, are building in-house capabilities, and this is especially true for AML CFT authorities that are housed within central banks or other authorities. Because in these cases, AML CFT authorities basically benefit from the institutional strategy as well as the institutional expertise in utilizing innovative technology. But not all AML CFT authorities have that luxury, right? Some are standalone authorities. And in these cases, they typically find it more efficient to take advantage of ready solutions in the market. But in either case, AML CFT authorities could be simultaneously collaborating with the academic community as well in order to do research as well as develop specific solutions. Now, in terms of implementation issues, there are actually several, most of which are quite obvious. For example, availability of resources, both expertise and funding. It is an all too familiar constraint for most authorities, right? But I want to focus on one particular challenge, which is the assessment of efficiency and effectiveness. I want to focus on this because efficiency and effectiveness are basically the main arguments for investing in these tools. And so we need to make sure that they are, or they can be easily done, right? Assessing efficiency of these tools is somewhat straightforward and can be easily quantified. For example, efficiency could be represented by the gains in terms of time savings provided by the new tools. And as I've mentioned earlier, this can be easily measured. Assessing effectiveness, on the other hand, can be more tricky, particularly when it comes to effectiveness of tools used by FIUs. The process of proving that a money laundering activity has occurred takes time, as you and the viewers might quite know. Once an FIU detects a suspicious activity, warrants more investigation, it passes this information on to the law enforcement agency. And if the law enforcement agency deems that it warrants prosecution, then it refers the case to the courts. And court proceedings can be quite protracted. So that it could take years to determine whether the Suptech tool has actually correctly identified a money laundering case. So in that way, assessing effectiveness may not be that straightforward, especially in the case for tools used by FIUs.
Right. So, Jeremy, are there any particular success stories, that you think could be shared with the audience? Stories, cases of other regulators or FIUs from anywhere around the world that you would like to speak about?
Yeah, sure. So, and thanks for asking that. Now, in our paper, Suptech applications for anti-money laundering. So that's the title of the paper, and it's actually part of the FSI Insight series. It's, I think, number 18 of that series. So we provided there some examples of use cases from a number of AML/CFT authorities. And so I encourage your viewers to read that paper. I believe the use cases in that paper illustrate in more detail the success stories in this area. What I want to emphasize here, though, is that success in this area does not only come from developing, investing, or using one or even several Suptech tools. I mean, to be successful, I believe authorities should take a holistic strategy on how they deal with data in their work and throughout the data pipeline as well, from data collection, data management, to data analytics and visualization. Because data is quite vital for the work of AML/CFT authorities and to financial authorities in general, because it informs the decisions that we make and the actions that we take with respect to institutions or markets. Now, the earlier technology or approaches that authorities used resulted in tools that actually hindered the optimal use of data that are at their disposal, because these earlier approaches tended to trap data in silos, and so authorities could not really exploit new sources of information or deliver timely insights. And Suptech has the potential to address these shortcomings. Big data architecture, for example, supports seamless data processes, while AI-enabled tools, analytics tools, allow large volumes of information to be integrated from disparate sources and then analyzed. And so, but the acquisition of Suptech tools, however, needs to be accompanied by a corresponding data expertise and mindset as well, if an organization is to successfully embed a data-driven culture within its ranks.
Right, excellent. Jeremy, I think that was really interesting. And, audience, if you would like to get hold of a copy of the Suptech and AML report that Jeremy spoke about today, feel free to write to us at contact@fintelekt.com, and we will arrange for a copy to be emailed over to you. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you.
No, thank you very much, Shirish, and I hope I've contributed something to the audience, to your viewers. Thank you very much as well.
Thanks, Jeremy.